Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle, and today we got an interesting problem reel. This is an Avet. It's the SX5.3:1, and well, it was brought in by Dan because, well, it's not working. And this is very unusual. It's hard to turn, and this is what you're hearing. Something is clearly wrong with this reel. Well, we'll try and answer out what's wrong with the reel, try and get it back going again, and show you how to service one of these if you have one, and you can learn about how the reel is made and well, how it's used by watching this video. Well, the first thing you want to do in a diagnosis is pull it back and see if it happens to be the bearings. This is spinning nice and free and easy, so we're going to rule out the bearings as the issue here, so it doesn't seem like anything is broken at this point anyway. But this board, and when you turn it this way, which should be moving the gears even though you're in free spool, it seems to be fine. So something's happening on either the gear side with the engagement or in the pressure plate side of the spool. That would be the initial thoughts, but whether we're right or wrong can only be shown by taking the reel apart and trying to service it. So let's get started on that. We're going to remove the exterior pieces and parts. And actually with this reel, it's kind of interesting. We can remove our free spool lever and the free spool adjuster, and we can remove the whole side plate now and just get a better look at what might be inside. Well, while we're doing that, I want to encourage you to subscribe to my channel. If you like the art of fishing reel service and repair, it is an art. If you'd like to learn more about fishing reels, if maybe you just have a curiosity about them in the industry and why one is different than the other, well, that's what I try and cover in this channel, as I try to show you how to service the reels and give your reels a second chance. The subscription costs you nothing. There's a lot to learn from it, and I encourage you to go ahead and subscribe, help my channel out, and help yourself out in terms of learning more about these simple machines. All right, we just loosened the 3 screws. That should enable me to take the side plate off. And with the side plate off, now I'm going to poke those screws through so I don't lose those. And right now it's kind of odd because this is what I would expect to see. There's some old greases and that in there as well. Let's pull that pressure plate out. Let's turn this thing, make sure that it's going. Yeah, it's doing what it should be doing. So it's not on this side. So something's going on the spool side. All right, I'm just going to take the rest of this off so we can service this. And we'll go over to the spool side, see what's going on there. Very unusual. These reels, even though they appear to be complicated, are rather simple reels. And that's one of the things that's nice about a lever drag reel. The lever drag reel has a basic principle to it. You're going to use the leverage of that arm to pull the spool to connect with the pressure plate, and that's going to give you your drag. It's different than the star adjusters, in that the star adjusters are kind of like a vise that presses down or compresses the drag stack to enable you to hold the shaft and the spool together. All right, well, we couldn't get that lock off that way, so simply loosen your nut and then you can remove this cover lock. When you work on a reel, make sure you know what you're going to be doing with the pieces and parts that you remove. I use a parts tray. All right. If you don't know the reel, one of the things you want to do is to take pictures along the way. Now this might be a bit of the cause of that. I'm noticing that there's some light pitting going on there. I'm going to use a piece of steel wool here to see if we can knock down any burrs that might be on that. Remember, this is working fine in free spool, which means that this pressure plate here is not attached when it's free spooling. So it may come that when it backs into the reel, it becomes more problematic. And you can feel with your fingers if there's any issues. So now I basically have discoloration, but I have a smooth pressure plate. I'm going to remove the handle. And this is a good place to take pictures. there's a couple of things going on here. One of them is your anti-reverse lever or connector. This is your dog up here. It's an eccentric kind of connector. As you're turning your reel, everything works fine. As you back off, it's going to pull down. It's going to pull the beak of this anti-reverse dog in for you. All right, let's take that off. There's two screws that hold on the anti-reverse cover, the dog cover. I'll take care to remove those. And you'll notice on the cover that the cover is not symmetrical. There's a wide side and a narrow side. The wide side is going to be the downside of this. So when you got to put this back on, wide side, narrow side, top, bottom. And we have those two very small screws that always make it fun for me to put it back together again. This is our dog, and if you took the picture, the dog's beak is facing down. That's how it's going to ride. This is our transition arm and our main gear. We're going to pull that out, do a quick look in here. This is our pinion gear. Some old grease and dirt on the bearings. Clean that up. These bearings are rubber sealed. They do absorb oil, so you can put a shot of oil in here. Well, that's whatever that was pretty thick stuff there. And an odd color, so I don't think it's going to matter too much, but there's something there. Sometimes it's like a forensics CSI kind of thing, right? Where did the crime happen? Let's take this off, clean this. Put a drop of oil on there. Again, it's rubber sealed. It should seep in over time. Okay, I'm going to take this off just so that you can see how to put it back on. We want to clean this as well. So there's an accumulation of old greases here. And there's a putty-like thing. I don't know what that is or if that's the cause. But that's generally with any service. You want to take your time. You want to clean the pieces and parts. You want to inspect them. And then you want to re-lubricate. Oh, that's pretty sticky stuff there. I wonder, could that have an effect on it? I don't know. Okay. If you needed to remove the axle shaft for any particular reason, just push it out. It's got a little rectangular mount inside here. Just remember this side goes up with the pointed hook. I'll take it out for you, show you. When you go to take this, there's a back end of this that's squared. It needs to fit into the square hole on this. Pull that out. A little bit of grease over there. So that's your forward facing side. You're going to load here. And you need to make sure that this is seated. A lot of times I'll find that it doesn't seat properly. And then you have the square in the back end that needs to seat. Best thing to do there is just keep pressure on it, and then there is a back collar washer to this. And then make sure that all of your teeth are clean, and these have been cleaned. So we're fine there. We're going to re-lubricate that. Use fishing wheel grease as you do this. Don't use general household greases or automotive greases of the like. They're not designed for fishing wheels. I like to say you wouldn't use fishing wheel grease on your car, so why would you use car's grease on your fishing wheels? But maybe that's just me. All right, we've kind of dropped the oil on the one. We can put that on the other. Take our main gear and bring this back in. There is a collar between the two bearings here. be aware of that. And one of the things I like to do, as you saw me do before with removing the handles, put the handle back on. That way it's going to hold the main gear in place and shouldn't cause you any trouble as you work further down on this. You can hand tighten it for now. All right, to get to the anti-reverse, it's a kind of a little dance here. This goes over the one part and then slides under the other. Once you have hooked this lever over, get your anti-reverse dog. We're going to use that hole there with the stud from here. Make sure your beak is pointed down. Then carry it over just like that. Bring your tie down here. Get your tie down screw. It's easy to flip that dog upside down, so make sure that you have the beak on the lower end. Grab the other screw. And that completes this gear side setup. You can test it to make sure everything is working fine. Just give it a spin. When you go to back, it should pull it in. It does. You can see how that works. And that will be how the anti-reverse is set. All right. I'm going to put that off to the side for a moment. We've cleaned up this side, but we still have a question here about what in the world's going on. Let's pull the spool out and see if there's anything unusual on both sides. Really isn't. There's some greases dried up in the back case here, but that's not it either. So it's really becoming quite interesting in terms of what's going on with this reel. Not sure. He does have braid on there. We're going to pull our axle shaft out, clean up the back. We will have a washer and a spool bearing here. And it does look like there might be some coarse wear, so now I'm starting to think that those burrs that I knocked off of the pressure plate here may have a part to do with that. And unfortunately with these washers are cemented onto the spool, so you have to send the spool back if you want it serviced. And I think sometimes it probably winds up just being that you have to get the spool replaced. Well, I'm seeing this little piece of braid right here that may actually be getting caught in the frame. So I'm going to strip some of that off. See if I can't get that out of the way. Pretty much goes pretty deep there too. Well, that's one of the problems with using the braid in these situations. And we also have an issue here with the way the braid is mounted. This may be an exaggerated situation of braid slip. I'm going to just keep pulling until I get that out maybe now. There we go. Now we're out. All right, this is going to be the wrong way to do this, but I'm just going to reload by hand. And then when I get done, we'll put it on a pole and we'll go cast it to have the reel actually reset this. But that could be an issue. You can see it here as well. If you get looped on that, it can catch in the frame, and that can certainly cause the damage there. Well, while we're doing this, if you have any questions on this reel or any reel in particular, if you want to leave those questions in the comment section, I will try to answer those for you. And well, it can be on this reel, but it can be on any reel. Doesn't really matter. I see the comments in the morning regardless of what video you left them on. So let's say maybe you're working on, oh, I don't know, a Mitchell 300 or something, totally unrelated to this reel and video. I still see that in the morning when they come up for review. So if you leave those comments and your questions, I do try to answer those the following morning. All right, I'm going to just snip this rest here. I'm going to put a little band, rubber band on this one. And we'll go back to doing what we were doing here about the spool service. Now sometimes on reels you're going to have a cover to this washer and an embedded pressure plate. That's not how this one is set up. I'm just going to pull this off. We do have some old oils and greases underneath. I oil my bearings, so we'll oil this one. There's a series of shim washers over here. You don't need to disturb those. Those are for the feel of the lever drag itself. I'm going to throw some oil on here. I will advise my customer that he's got wear on the drag washer and the procedure for getting that serviced. Again, I want to make sure, even though we knocked the burrs off and even though we see the wear there, I'm beginning to think that the issue might have been that braid getting trapped in the frame. All right, one more part. That's the pressure plate that goes on top. And you have two ways that you can mount this one when you go to reinstall. One of them is to mount it into the pressure plate and merge it to the side plate. The other is to put it in the side plate and merge it into the pressure plate. And what I find, generally speaking, is it's easier to do it this way because it has to embed. It's kind of a tricky little way to lock in there. And it always seems to be easier to get it with the smooth side engaging into your gear side rather than the studded side going into the pressure plate. Okay. Line up your 2 points to lock it into the case. Bring this over, and now we can merge in the main. We can go back to our parts tray, get the 3 side screws. We'll see if it made any difference. Again, because the reel turns free in free spool, and it turns free on the gear side, you have a spool going. It can only be in a transition. And what we noticed there was the rough pressure plate, the worn drag washer, and perhaps that overhanging braid catching in the spool lip here. We'll see. Okay. To set your lever, move that over to your free spool position. Grab your tension assembler, knob, preset knob, I guess they'll call it on some. Let's bring that on and tighten it down a couple of turns. Last thing I need to do before we go back and adjust that lever drag, I want to make sure that I complete the tightening of the handle arm. And on this, there's 2 points on the cap. If you get the point pointing to both screw holes, generally this is going to line up as your tie-down cap. And then we got those 2 small screws that will probably drop 3 times between now and then. See what we can do to get these on. Yeah, success with one. Life is good. All right. One more. So why did this reel fail? We have a couple of candidates. We don't have a absolute certainty yet. We do know that we took the reel completely apart. We found some clogged grease in the main gears, but that shouldn't have caused the issue. We noticed on the pressure plate that there were some burrs. Cleaned those up. We noticed that there was some overhanging braid on the spool that may have gotten trapped occasionally in the rim here. That's a candidate. We just don't know. We're going to find out if it's changed though, or if we still have the same situation. We're in free spool. Spin your spool, make sure that it spins nice and free and easy, and then bring it over, make sure it stops. And we still have a grind here, not as badly as one. Yeah. So my guess on this one is that the pressure plate needs to be replaced, because as we lock down, I think what we're getting is a skip here. And I think that's clearly the pressure plate and the spool. And that's bad news for the owner of this reel, because the spool is expensive, and as is the pressure plate. Okay, well, we've learned a lesson here. We learned that what's really happening is probably lack of attention and detail in the service of this reel at some point, and that, well, now is the time to go back and get it serviced by replacing the pieces and parts. Well, I hope you've enjoyed it. It's been an interesting little journey there. You always learn from these reels, and, well, on to the next steps and parts and replacements. Okay, before I leave, I want to thank our first responders, our police, fire, safety, rescue, and everybody involved in keeping us out of harm's way. Truly appreciate your efforts day in and day out. I want to thank you for that. I also want to thank you, the channel viewer, for watching, for contributing to the channel, for making this channel what it is, and continuing to help improve it. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle, wishing everybody a great day.